So we're going to get started about this valuable device. I was fortunate enough to be a part of the testing and development with the Seek Thermal team. When they started down this road, they let me give them feedback on what firefighters think. They did all the hard work. We just burned it and tried to break it. And it was very, very informative working with a group that listened to a firefighter and putting the feedback into a device now that is designed with firefighters in mind, with the intent of helping you do your job safer, smarter, and get you home to your family. So many of you may have heard the term situational awareness. What we want to tell you is that term was first introduced, not situational awareness like Dr. Gasway talks about, but a situational awareness TIC was first introduced by Scott Safety when they introduced the Scott site in 2016. And these devices were intended to prevent firefighter disorientation and aid in maintaining those situational awareness. If you want to learn more about that and why that's important, I encourage you to look up the number of firefighters that are lost and disoriented each year and read the U.S. Firefighter Disorientation Study where William Mora did. And there's a book called Preventing Firefighter Disorientation that focuses on the most common and oldest problem in the fire service, which is the loss of direction due to lack of vision in a structure fire. We like to say we're giving you your sight back by giving you a plan so you can execute that in an environment where it's very difficult to work. So if you know about these before, this is a refresher, but bear with us as we go through this because a lot of people still aren't aware of this knowledge, and that's okay. That's what we're here for to do. Is there's two types of thermal imaging cameras being marketed or sold to firefighters today. You have your situational awareness cameras, which we'll focus on in this episode, and decision making. Decision making implying those go in the decision making hands, company officers, the safety officers, battalion chiefs, or as I like to say, the designated adult. Seek makes several different models. We're going to focus on the Fire Pro 300, which is the most unique situational awareness tool on the market. I call it the ultimate situational awareness TIC, and you'll find out why. And here's why you should kind of delve into this a little bit deeper. In general, 40% of the American fire service did not know the difference between the two main types of cameras that were being sold to firefighters. The reason why we know this is when in 2016, when they first came to market, many cameras were purchased solely on price and did not do their homework to realize these devices, in most cases, were never intended to replace bigger, larger handheld cameras. What you notice on the cameras on the right that are made by Seek and MSA over here, they are faster. They have a 16 to 30 hertz refresh rate. The cameras on the left have an 8.7 to 9 hertz refresh rate. Please do your homework and understand what that means. If you want to learn more about that, we have a free webinar here in the QR code that breaks down these models so that you can understand the difference and the value of these devices. But understand, if your camera is not moving as fast as you can, which is about 25 hertz is the average refresh rate of the human eye, you will find yourself frustrated or worse. You need a device that keeps up with you, that's simple, durable, and gives you good image clarity without delaying information to you when you need it most. So why are these needed? Many of you have heard this before, so we decided to go a little bit deeper with knowledge and references and resources. Here's what I want you to think about. If you read NIOSH line of duty death reports, they always list the contributing factors and recommendations. If you read those contributing factors, they can be summarized into two categories. Firefighters were unaware of changing conditions, which could be rapid fire development or collapse, and firefighters became lost, trapped, or disoriented. That's the two general categories that all of those predominantly fall into. And if you look at line of duty injuries, not line of duty deaths, which very few people talk about, 18% of those injuries were due to being lost, caught, trapped, or disoriented. And over 64% of the United States of America is protected by volunteer or combination departments that often struggle with staffing and funding. There's a big debate right now about 2 in, 2 out, the OSHA rule. I hate to break it to them, but the majority of fire departments never could comply with that anyway because they never put enough firefighters on the fire ground thanks to a lack of funding and support from municipalities, state, and government funding. Your fire department may have been showing up with 2 or less in some cases. Do your homework, find out what your fire department's providing and why. Maybe it's time we should get involved and support our local firefighters, not only with staffing, funding, and lobbying for them, but maybe you can help raise money to purchase these needed devices for them because they're risking their life so you can sleep safely at night. As a friend of mine says, we are the watchers. Make sure that you know these firefighters are standing by ready to respond, and it should be the government, the state, and the citizens' responsibility to make sure that they have the tools to save your family if needed. They risk their lives every day, so they should have a secondary means of orientation. And the sad news is many volunteer firefighters are paying for these devices out of their pocket, not because they have to, not because they're required to, but because they care about you. Keep that in mind as we go through this, because the cause of traumatic injuries and structure fires per the UL full-scale floor system fatal in laboratory fire experiments on page 12 shows the major causes of traumatic injuries inside of structures was determined to be firefighters becoming lost, structural collapse, and rapid fire progression. Remember what I just said? Surprised or unaware of changing conditions and becoming lost? Those are traumatic injuries. Everybody looks at the number of deaths, but they don't look at the number of injuries, which is quite high inside these structures. Firefighters get hurt every day, and many of them result in time off from work. If you're wondering about this cool picture, this is from IFRT Germany, and that's Kyle Rongus sitting there, one of my good friends playing with fire. We just thought you'd like a nice photo there. And here's a reason why we're surprised or unaware of changing conditions. Many firefighters were taught to read smoke. But firefighters in general, what I've seen as we encounter this, are not aware of how much heat is moving through that environment. Watch this short little clip and tell me, when you look at it through the FirePro 300, how much heat is hitting this firefighter, and do you think this line is actually flowing in this environment? Red is 300 degrees in survey mode in the FirePro 300. That thermal layer is below his waistline. How hot is that room? Those are apparent temperatures, which are estimated values, so we know it's much hotter than that. And as we talk and reading smoke, that's high velocity. So the faster it's moving, the faster the heat transfer. Your gear can only absorb so much before you are surprised when bad things happen. And this is where the data hits the road and meets the pavement, so to speak. Firefighters, on average, are anywhere between 30 to 100,000 injuries, depending on which year you read. This one was 2015 through 2017, 63,000 injuries, resulting in 11,466 firefighters injured, all from work, due to being trapped, lost, or caught. Don Abbott's work in Project Mayday shows that the majority of Maydays, 25 to as much as 35%, were resolved by self-rescue. That means if we could put one of these devices on each firefighter and train them on something I'm going to tell you about here in a minute, we could up that number, rescue more firefighters by simply teaching them to take care of themselves. Because a lot of times there is no 2 out, there is no RIT team. This is a volunteer accommodation organization, or where my friend works their first due with three to take care of you. Make sure you understand that, because if you look at the statistics from 2016 to 2022, 23 firefighters died due to being lost, caught, trapped, or disoriented. Volunteer, career, wildland, all included. 43% of them were volunteer, and not 39% were career that died out of that due to those reasons. Everybody wants to slough off the fact that not that many firefighters are dying. But I promise you, if I took one of you away from your family today, they would care, especially if it was a preventable way. And firefighters are losing in buildings where they should win. Our goal is to help you win, get in there, do your job, find the victim, put the fire out, and get you home to your family. And every military special forces or person I talk to that works in the dark uses technology in addition to their training to help them be more efficient. But yet the fire service continues to push this away as if they don't need it. You don't drive on the interstate with your headlights off. Don't go in a burning building where you can't see, where you've never been in before, and expect to be efficient. And don't expect to magically find your way if you can't. You need a secondary means of orientation, which can prevent you from being surprised from unaware of changing conditions. This device costs less than a cell phone and allows you to have decision-making power and a situational awareness housing, and give you this type of image clarity for $1,000. No other camera on the market does that. No other camera provides this clarity, speed, ease of use, and can be operated with a gloved hand and held like a cell phone. None. There's nothing that touches it. And everyone could get one of these. We just had the misfortune of having to buy an iPhone 15. I don't even want to tell you what I paid for that, but I could have bought a FirePro 300 and had some money left over. So let's make sure we prioritize what we buy as firefighters if we're going to spend our own money, because we want to teach you how to become more intelligently aggressive and do things that will help you do your job better. And what I like to say is I'm helping firefighters learn how to use situational awareness cameras, the first thing we're going to teach them is how to identify objects and hazards. You say, why would you do that? Everybody trains on buildings, they train on identifying fire conditions like reading smoke, but I see very few firefighters, with the exception of my cadre and a lot of the people that we train with, that actually watch hours of videos knowing what a door would look like, what a hose would look like, what stair railings would look like, drop ceiling tiles, door casing, moldings, vents, all of those things, shiny objects like door handles, window frames, panic bars, your connections on your RIT pack, your UAC connection, belt buckles, helmets, what they look like through a camera. Why would you do that? Because one, it's going to look different through every camera. Two, you need to know what it looks like in low, moderate, and high heat. And three, when you're panicked or you're in trouble or trying to find your brother or sister, the last thing you want to do is be staring at something and go, is that a window? Is that my way out? Read the Meadowwood Court close call report about the firefighter who jumped out the window and how he identified that window. Take the time to read and learn from people who've already paid the price, been injured, or sadly lost their lives, so that we don't have to go through that again, that we can use data like this to help us when we need it. Because we work in an environment that says on your turnout gear, firefighting is inherently hazardous and dangerous to your health. You can be injured and killed doing this job. You're never going to take that away, but you can lessen the danger, the risk, by being more trained and having more resources when you need it. And this serves as an additional resource for you to help you identify those objects or hazards. Like looking above you, we have this wire hanging down that's from ductwork, the flex ductwork. When it melts and all the wire hangs down, we can identify stairs on our way out. One of my members of my cadre can share a very powerful story about a quick scan that identified a stair for him that helped him in his Mayday. And then you can identify hose lines. They can be either dark or white, depending on the background and whether the water that's flowing through it is cold or the pump operator is not circulating water, which we know that never happens. But just saying, they can present differently. But if you know what they look like ahead of time, you know how to find them quickly without staring at the screen too long. Because when your Viber alert stops on your Scott air pack and pain's pushing you to the floor, the last thing I think a firefighter is going to do is grab a hose line and smooth bump to the pump. They're going to follow the hose line. They're going to find the door, and you see them run. If they know they've got 17 to 24 breaths left when the Viber alert stops, I doubt they're going to slow down. I doubt you slow down when your heart rate's above 170 and all you can think about is seeing your family again. These are what we talk about, the things that nobody else talks about. Hazard identification is key, because if we identify hazards first, we can also mitigate them, put the fire out faster, ventilate, and not get disoriented. As Andy Frederick says, prevent RIT. You don't have to jump out the windows if you put the fire out. So if we teach firefighters what these conditions look like through a thermal imaging camera from simple demonstrations, then we can make them safer, smarter, and more intelligently aggressive. They read the smoke, and then we teach them to read the thermal conditions they see in this simple little demonstration with a flashover box, a phase 1 container in South Montgomery County, Texas. So we want them to recognize what conditions look like when they're okay, when they're moderate, and when they're about to go bad, and even show them what severe conditions look like, such as unidirectional or full exhaust flow paths. Many firefighters have gotten caught in full exhaust, grayscale convective current flow paths and been burned, injured, and killed, did not recognize it due to many reasons, such as higher thermal protective performance thresholds of their gear, along with the lack of tip usage. This device can allow you to do that without weighing you down, because it weighs 325 grams. It's out of your way. And you need two hands to operate, to search, to move hose line, to carry tools, to grab victims. Last thing you want is a bigger, heavier tick if you're an operations personnel when you're in there trying to do task level work. So hazard identification is extremely important for firefighters moving in these environments. So my question to you, ladies and gentlemen, is who is watching out for you? 1.2 million firefighters in the United States, 27,187 fire departments, 52,054 fire stations in the last survey I read. That equates to 789,555 firefighters who are volunteer, paid on call combination departments. Do you think they show up with 4 people, 10 people, 20 people all at once? Do you think they have the adequate staffing and funding? We've helped a couple departments where their annual budget could barely put fuel in their trucks. America has some very interesting areas, I'll use the word, where fire departments don't receive the support they deserve. And many organizations like mine and Seek Thermal are going out of their way to try to donate cameras. Firehouse Public Safety Funds or Foundation, their grants, AFG grants, lots of ways, along with public fundraising efforts, can help these organizations. But when you want to get home to your family, the last thing you want to think of is, man, I wish I would have had this. Who's watching out for you? Because you're risking your life. You want to have every way means possible to get home to them. That's not saying not do your job. Let's say do your job, and when things do happen, which they will, you'll have an option that most people didn't have. So let's look at some of these options. FirePro 300, the most innovative ultimate situational awareness camera created thus far to date. The field of view has done something that most cameras have not done. A lot of firefighters have asked why we teach turning the camera sideways. We simply did that to increase the field of view. We take the horizontal field of view, which is typically the largest, and we turn it sideways, which gives us that field of view vertical, which allows you to see floor and ceiling in one view. Well, with the FirePro 300, the engineers and team at Seek Thermal flipped it. So you don't have to turn the camera sideways. You hold it like a cell phone. It allows you to see that environment. It has the same dynamic range, same detector as the Attack Pro. It has something that's a game changer in the market known as mixed gain mode, which allows each pixel to switch independently, which no other product does. It has TI basic. It has the spot temperature mode, which y'all know I'm not a fan of. And then survey mode, which is a very useful feature for all the low temperature environments, overhaul, smells and bells, size up, you name it, you can use it. It gives you decision-making resolution and a situational awareness housing with the speed of a decision-making camera, the thermal sensitivity plus image enhancement from SV1, and it has a 6-hour battery life, and it's affordable, and you can learn about it. And that particular QR code takes you to the previous webinar if you want to review other stuff we've shared, and it gives you this level of image clarity with a firefighter below a thermal layer. You can tell he's wearing a Scott air pack. His regulator line is cold. You can see he's wearing a metal shield. You can see the connection points on his turnout gear. You can see all of this up close, because one thing people don't talk about is fire service cameras typically have depth perception issues. Anything closer than 1 meter or 3 feet will become blurry or difficult to focus on. The Seek Thermal products are focused at 12 inches. You heard me, that's 12 inches. A FirePro 300 clipped to every RIT pack should be standardized. It allows a firefighter to pick it up and see things up close. Is that coax cable or is that a regulator line? Do I need to cut that? Do I need to pull that away? You know, all of that information can be done very quickly with that device and save time, because when firefighters call Mayday, they call it late. This device allows you to do many things that other cameras cannot do. And where Seek has really changed the game is they took the same engine in the big decision-making camera and they put it in a small situational awareness camera. Many people will go, why would they do that? Nobody's going to buy the big camera. Well, I can assure you, I have tried to destroy that big camera and failed. I have tried to destroy the small camera and I've done it. So if you think about the difference in thickness and insulated properties, you can overheat a small camera a lot easier than you can that big tank known as the Attack Pro. These cameras are tough, but firefighters treat things harsh. We are hockey players, not ballerinas. We destroy stuff. So your FirePro 300, you take care of it, you strap it to you, keep it from swinging around, it'll last you a long time. You swing it around and beat it up against things, you're going to break it. So every camera has a germanium window or lens on the front that can be shattered. This camera has the power and the speed and the clarity of some $3,000 to $5,000 cameras in a smaller housing that nobody else can touch. It makes things smarter, simpler, safer for firefighters. And I don't know if you noticed this picture here, these buttons were designed for gloved hands. 2 of those buttons, power and application mode or flashlight, can be operated, as Rob Ramirez says, with your oven mitts on. So you can operate them with big, bulky gloved hands and still keep rocking. And that's good, because not all of us have Vanguard MK1s or Firedex gloves. Some of us have big blue NASA space gloves issued by the department. And this camera allows you to do everything I just mentioned, and it has survey mode. And the biggest thing I would encourage you to learn about is why Seek Thermal changed the market with mixed gain mode. When you look at this picture of this firefighter moving down this hallway with an attack line, you are able to pick up the firefighter down low, the cooler environment, and the hotter environment simultaneously. The majority of the cameras on the market will do well in high gain, high sensitivity, low gain, low sensitivity, but they don't do well in both. What you have here is in the camera that's able to focus in on both areas, and the pixels down low in the cooler environment are in high gain or high sensitivity, and the pixels up top where it's hot are in low gain or low sensitivity. That is an automatic transmission. Every camera on the market is dual gain or tri gain, which means it has to shift gears to adjust the span to see that environment better. This is the first camera that takes that thought process away and allows you as a firefighter to focus on the task and not whether or not it's switching, whether the triangle shows up, whether it's delaying information. You don't have to worry about that anymore. It's automatic. And that's the way it should be. When your time is precious, which equates to life or death, you don't need to worry about the icon or whether the color bar changed. You need to worry whether or not the environment changed and how quickly you can assess that, and you can do that. And here's your general overview. Notice the button in the middle is smaller. It's a little bit more difficult to operate with gloved hands for a reason. Because I don't think you should be trying to take photos or videos if you're in the middle of an active structure fire. You can set it prior to going in there if you want, or you can use it during overhaul. But if you press that center button one time, it'll take a photo. If you press it and hold it before you go into the fire, it's automatically recording in 5-minute intervals. Your green button is your power or return to home button, and your application mode button is also the flashlight button. Here's a little cheat code. The instructions tell you to press the flashlight button and hold for 3 seconds to shift to spot sensor mode or survey mode. If you will take both fingers, or we like to do thumbs, a thumb on the power button, a thumb on the flashlight button, and press it simultaneously, you can click through those application modes instantly. I have yet to meet a patient firefighter in a stressful environment. You don't want to wait a total of 6 to 9 seconds to shift gears. Just click, 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 and you're in survey mode. And if you turn it off in survey mode, guess what? It starts back on in survey mode. So you can set it to start in that low temp environment if you want. Front has the lens, which we recommend you wipe every time you pick it up. And if your face piece fogs up, please wipe the lens, because if this lens fogs up, you will not see anything on any camera. The image will degrade, diminish. Many firefighters have claimed it's whited out. New cameras don't white out due to heat. They go red due to heat, and they oversaturate, and they have a triangle in the top center that tells the inside's overheating. This one, you will see a white screen if you get moisture, particulate, debris on it. Wipe it with your gloved hand, and know that Seek and Bullard are the only two that I know of that does this, that's a lens cover and the real lens is behind it. So if you break that lens, you can still use it till the end of the actual incident. Then you need to have it replaced. The rest of the cameras, you break the lens, it's out of service. You're done. You got to send it back. But you still need to have yours replaced. But this is redundancy. This is built for a firefighter. Make sure when you clean these, you do it soap and water, alcohol wipe on the charging contacts and on the lens. Don't use harsh solvents, and please don't use a wire brush. Please. People have done that and scratched the lens. The image looks like you know what, and they don't know why. And the front LCD cover here is made of Gorilla Glass. See how they built this? It's built for toughness. Let me give you an example of why mixed gain mode is so powerful. This is some of my firefighters filming in Parker, Texas. I'd like to thank Charlie Dahl for the opportunity when we went to Parker, Texas for this event. I want you to see the power of convection currents, grayscale, image clarity, and watch these two side by sides of the FirePrairie 300, and notice you don't have delay. Look how clear the convection currents are. Before the Seek came on the market, I always said the Bullard had the best convection currents on the market. They were easy to identify. Now Bullard and Seek have the easiest to identify convection currents, bar none, because that convection gives you direction, tells you the severity of the fire, but tells you where it's coming from and where it's going. Colorization gives you information about heat, how much heat. It could be just heat from a residual heat, or it could be heat from the movement like you're seeing here. Notice the firefighter down low here, he's still visible. The inside of that fire room floor is still visible. And the image clarity above, you can see the heat. Your other feature that this device has that I mentioned was very valuable is called survey mode. Every fire service camera, in my opinion, should have 2 application modes. Application mode meaning you have an option to choose for task. You have fire or you have an investigative. Investigative in this case is survey mode. This is the only camera on the market that colorizes at 150 degrees. So when you run all these smells and bells, odors of electrical, you're sizing up a building, you're doing overhaul, or you have light smoke in a building, you're trying to find the heat source, down power lines, you're looking for people ejected from a car, looking for heat signatures, that are lower. This is a great feature because it colorizes 150 Fahrenheit or excuse me, 150 degrees Celsius, or well, excuse me, I said it all wrong. I'm sorry, 150 degrees Fahrenheit or 65 degrees Celsius. If you are in TI basic or fire mode, you colorize at 302 degrees Fahrenheit or 150 degrees Celsius. I've been going back and forth overseas, so I'm switching between Celsius, Fahrenheit, metric, inches, so forgive me. This is extremely useful in size up, locating hidden fire and overhaul applications, and I'll show you some examples. If you ever have an overheating moment where you're doing live fire with this camera and you're going in, going out, red triangle on the top center screen will show up, meaning the inside of the device is starting to overheat. Please remove the camera from the environment, let it cool off. You don't, with any camera, if you allow it to continue to heat, you can cause damage to a camera. Make sure you're aware of that. That's in the instructions and in that quick reference guide that's included. But a phrase that my friend Mike Chapman taught me, when you're using investigative modes like this, it can be useful in early or late in the fire incident. So early in size up or late when the heat is diminished. Survey mode I would not recommend for high heat environments because it will saturate. This is a great example from my friend and instructor, Chief John Lightly, of how valuable this is in Overhaul. Those of you who like to do shoulder workouts will appreciate this video. Lath and plaster, how much work do we have here to do? Oh my, where's your no fear sticker now? That's a roof hook and some creatine and some Gatorade and second alarm, please. There's a lot of work there, boys and girls. That ain't done. You leave that, you're gonna have a rekindle, especially where you see red. This is the advantage of a survey mode feature. It allows you to pick up those often unseen colorized areas that are in grayscale, because a lot of my buddies are all about grayscale, but here's the bad news. Your camera uses 256 contrasting shades of gray. You can't differentiate which shade of gray is hotter or tell me which pixel is 189, 198, 292. It just says white. White could be relative, could be relatively warm, it could be super hot. So everywhere you see white, you're going to pull out, or do you want to look at these areas and investigate? As my friend Chief Mitchum says, when in doubt, I'm going to check it out. Look at the hose line, how dark it is. It's a very valuable video. There's some spots there on the floor. Look how much more work's got to be done. This is why these features are important. Look at that. Oops, we got more work to do. Everybody wants to fight fire. Nobody gets excited about Overhaul. I don't know why. This is an example too for you from a search perspective. You make a push into a house and you got to do a search ahead of the hose line. There's a lot of arguing about that. I don't argue tactics. Listen, if you're coming to get my family, just win. I want you to get in there, get them out. And here's a great example of why that matters. You can quickly identify stairs, and to the right in grayscale, a lot of firefighters would dismiss that second floor as a threat. And it's not a threat to you with your PPE on, but an unprotected kid with the door open, you're pushing 250, 300 degrees apparent temperatures up there, which we know is much hotter. What does that do to an unprotected civilian wearing polyester pajamas? That's a great example of where I would want to VES those second floors and bring that patient or that victim away from the heat. You take a child back through that heat and down those stairs, as the UL report shows, you could literally kill a victim dragging them through that. So this is why these features matter. You can quickly train people without a lot of information, because I'm going to be honest with you, I push thermal imaging training, but the majority of departments don't push it. They might give them an hour, maybe 4 hours every couple of years. You need to make this as easy and intuitive to help firefighters as much as you can. As much as I'd love for everyone to be level 3 thermographers, master thermographers from Inspection Institute, they're not. They don't have the time, the budget, and the department's not going to back it. Not in my generation, might be in the future. But this makes it simpler, helps us do our job without having to do a whole lot of quick referencing of studying pixels and emissivity and all the values that go into that. So let's talk about some uses of this, the cool stuff. If I'm going to use this camera, I've told you before, I would not use a situational awareness camera for decision making. This camera breaks the rules because it's a decision making camera inside of a situational awareness housing. So you can use it for those features. I would still recommend a bigger camera because you have a bigger screen and more durability. But the average firefighter who is part of that 755,000 is probably not just serving the role as company officer or driving the fire truck. As my friend Joey Baxter says, as a captain in his department, he could be driving the truck, he could be running the pump panel, he could be doing a 360, he could be on the hose line, he could be searching, all at the same fire. That's the value of a reduced staffing environment. So he doesn't need a big bulky camera hanging off of him if he's got to throw ladders, grab axes, tools. stretch 2-inch tack line. He needs something quick, easy, and reliable. So you can use this device for size up, fire attack, split search, regaining orientation, mayday, RIT, overhaul, and all this and more. This is a picture we took at Delaware State Fire School here. Shout out to Jeff Brown for that opportunity. Those are great people doing great work. They put some of our stuff into play, and I'm really proud of them for doing that. Here's an example of a personal size up use. You're on the truck coming off, you and one firefighter, you grab the pre-connect and you're stretching the Minuteman. You come off and you see this. Obviously, that's where a fire is. We switch it to survey mode. Now we see how much heat's moving that way, which tells me if I'm going unburned to burn, or if I'm doing search, I could go greatest thermal threat over there where the red was, or if I'm over here, watch this when we open this door. Look at the thermal bridging around the top of the door frame. When I open this door, tell me if this surprises you what's behind it. Look at that hallway. There's 2 hallways in this container. This is just the residual heat. The next hallway is actually moving. You can actually see convection moving. What would that do to an unprotected child laying at the end of that floor, that hallway? That's bad news. So now you know where your heat is and what you need to do. That took 30 seconds, and I did it while walking, carrying the hose line. That's impressive, okay? This is monitoring effects of suppression. Many times firefighters have what we call training wounds. A friend of mine corrected me and said, when I said called them training scars, he said, it's not a scar if we're still doing it. It's a wound, it's actively bleeding. So in many fire departments, they're not flowing enough water. When they attack a fire, the fire's attacking them. And if you watch this video, you can clearly see the fire is attacking them. They're crawling through the heat before they open the nozzle. Look at the thermal layer and how much heat's blasted them before they ever open the nozzle. Now it starts to lift a little bit, but if convection is passing you, you're not attacking the fire is attacking you. As my friend Kyle Romgus says, we can diagnose whether this is a hit and move or flow and move fire by simply flowing water down that hallway and seeing what comes back and the speed of it. Is it knocked back or knocked down? In this case, we decided to attack it with PPE and not water. This is how you can monitor the effects or lack thereof of suppression as a company officer or the second firefighter on the hose line, all with a 325-gram device. When we talk about thermal situational awareness, not situational awareness, my friend Dr. Gasaway, who is the best. If you want to talk about the brain and how the body reacts, I highly recommend him. You need to understand this device can help you see things that you wouldn't normally see with the naked eye. The human eye only sees between 0.4 and 0.7 nanometers. Where we look at long wave, short wave, mid wave, all of that infrared radiation, this camera sees between 7 and 14 micron. And when you adjust it to survey mode, you go from 2 yellow spots and grayscale to a lot of areas down below that are still hot enough that could cause a problem later. And here's where we need to talk about this when we talk about overhaul. If you notice in both of these features, the spot temperature is chopped off. So in TI Basic, there is no spot temperature on this camera. TI Basic Plus and survey mode, spot temperature is engaged. Please do not use the spot temperature in overhaul because you will read a small measurement of the area, and firefighters have come out after a fire and said, hey chief, fire room's good at 74 degrees. No, it's not. That one spot may or may not be, depending on what it is and where you're standing, what kind of camera you're holding. But if your device fails to show color until late, some of these at 300, 500 or higher, and you're not trained at grayscale thermal pattern identification like a thermographer is, good luck. You could look at something well insulated and fire could be behind it and see no color. Masonry wall, refrigerated panels, well insulated panels. Make sure you use the right application mode during the right time to help you do your job smarter, safer, and faster. And survey mode is a great example of that. When we talk about size up, it's a picture from my friend John Lightly. When you're walking up, you can see how quickly you can assess that we got heat underneath that porch where the firefighters are about to make the push. They can see what they need to knock back, and if they miss stuff, he can help guide them. We can use it for force and entry. We can look at the door and tell it what's inward swinging door, or our lock is, the hinges are. We can look at line placement. And here's another one. We move hoses in parking lot for training, but when you're in the dark moving down a hallway, a company officer can look back and see if the line's kinked, caught on something, can follow that line back and don't have to yell at the pump operator and say, I need more pressure. No, you need to get the 3 kinks out of the line between the 2 pinch points. We can use it for ventilation purposes to identify hot areas where you need to take the window or cut the roof. And now you're independently operating firefighters, which nobody wants to talk about. that in America, there are singular firefighters, single, operating by themselves today somewhere in the US, now have an advantage. They have a device that gives them clarity and helps them do their job better, and they deserve that. This is an example from my friend Sean Duffy, some work we did at Firehouse Expo, showing the efforts of search from VES to crawling around a hallway looking for the fire and looking for the victims. You clearly see the hose line, see him moving in the tripod position, which we recommend. You see him sweeping and sounding, and you see the firefighters actually getting blasted in the face with convection currents. We don't recommend leaving somebody at the window for a variety of reasons. That's one of them. Get in, get your scan, boom, go to the door. Firefighter behind you goes straight to the bed of the victim when you're out of there. Or you can move beyond the door. I don't argue tactics. I give you data. You make your decision based on data and circumstances. This guy quickly goes to the bunk bed, realizes it's a bunk bed because of the data that's being provided to him. He's not carrying the camera. The person behind him gave him a quick look, and everybody's moving, split searching. Nobody's sitting there staring at the camera, watching the camera. They give you data, they put the camera down, and they move. We don't recommend a bunch of videographers. We're talking about tacticians who need data, and they need it quickly. You notice the image on the left starting to degrade a little bit. This is what happens when we don't wipe the lens. This is how much the image clarity can change in a matter of a few seconds versus the image on the right. Look at the difference. Right image clear, left image not. We wipe the lens, it clears right up. Also, if you're constantly wiping the lens, you're probably in a bad place. You're either too high standing up, or you're a tall person, or you're above the fire in an exhaust. This is a great example of a vehicle fire. In TI Basic, we see the firefighter starting to squirt water, and then when we look up top in survey mode, we see a couple spots that need to be cooled off. No big deal, but we're able to identify those areas rather quickly because of this survey mode feature. We found a lot of other areas that we would have missed without an investigative mode color palette. When you look at other camera manufacturers offer some similar things, like FLIR has search and rescue mode, Bullard has thermal throttle. Whatever camera you use, I highly recommend you understand the options it has. Some cameras offer non-fire friendly color palettes. Please understand what those are, such as iron bow, black hot, rainbow, or color, high color they call them. Watch out for those, because those are thermography based color palettes, not designed for high heat environments. A lot of people use those without knowing what they're getting into, and then when they start using them in high heat environments, they saturate, and then you see nothing. You see tons of color which wash out the detail behind it. So make sure you understand what these are used for and what they're not used for before you go into your next fire. And when we talk about, hey, we got knocked down, the fire's out, control time, look at this. This is an exterior fire. We walk up to the back of this building in survey mode. We can clearly see some hot areas on the ground where they're still knocking stuff down. And then we see heat on the side of the building. Notice when we go to TI Basic, what disappears. We're going to switch it to TI Basic. We got that big red spot on the wall, yellow, orange, red. Boom. What happened to my color? I changed the application mode and how the camera sees. Now it's not showing color till 302 degrees. Even though Seek shows it earlier than any other camera on the market because it does it pixel by pixel, where everybody else does it percentage wise, you are missing something. And you can clearly see that when I go back to survey mode. And you can see the side-by-side comparison here with the Fire Pro 300 that quickly make a difference. If you're a company officer, battalion chief, you're not dressed out and you're coming up, after things are out, that device can fit on a radio strap with an extra radio pocket, or excuse me, glove strap, whatever you want to use, and it's not weighing you down. It also has a flashlight. I used to carry my Fire Pro 300 as a battalion chief everywhere because I never knew when I was going to need it. Very valuable device. Also, I spent some time at the airport. What I notice about guys who work at ARF stations is you can see some pretty cool stuff with this device looking at an airplane. Look at all the reinforcements in the airplane you can see underneath the shell here. We were able to find other things. Lots of smells and bells are running in airports every day. Overheated brakes on airplanes, all kind of different things. We found overheated components in the aircraft, electrical components, things of that nature. Extremely valuable feature that can help you. Just use it. If you'll simply carry it and use it, you will come up with ways of using it that I can only dream of. This is my favorite picture from a friend of mine, Mike Daly, who's an awesome TIC instructor and probably the best fire behavior guy out there. He speaks math. I don't speak math. He understands it exceptionally well. However, this is an example of understanding your camera. This subtle white apparition looking shadow on the wall here is a sign of a big problem behind that wall. Homeowner reported odor of something burning but didn't see smoke or flames. The initial arriving company was unable to locate anything. He came in with the FirePro 300, switched to survey mode. Breaker for this outlet in this incident did not trip, and the wiring to the outlet melted. It started to heat the stud to the point where there was significant heat pattern in survey mode. What if they had missed this and went back to the station, went to bed and left that homeowner in there? What could have happened several hours later or minutes later? We could have had a rekindle and could have cost someone their home or worse. These small signatures is what I'm trying to teach people to look for now. I'm not trying to teach you look for color every time. I'm trying to teach firefighters to recognize abnormal thermal patterns that tell you there's heat transfer there. If we can teach firefighters to recognize abnormal thermal patterns, it won't matter what color palette we're in. They'll nail it long before color shows up. But until then, things like survey mode can help us, but you need to know that is not a normal heat signature. There shouldn't be one right there. And then Don Abbott, God rest his soul, he did more for the American Fire Service than most want to give him credit for. With his compilation of Mayday data, showed that up to 35% of all Maydays involve firefighters rescuing themselves. If you read the Michael Whitty report, it talks about FDNY, Boston, and Chicago. When they purposely disoriented them, they gave them a camera and they found their way out 100% of the time. 100% of the time. So if a trapped firefighter who's inside can also relay more information to the RIP team if he or she is trapped with a FirePro 300, and he has that in that core center mass area that Rob Ramirez talks about in his class, Mayday Mindset, which I highly recommend you take. And a trapped firefighter can also use it to identify small objects that they may themselves be already entangled in. If you've done the dreaded entanglement box, that's a good example of being able to see what's got you caught, whether you're walking around the drop ceilings, drop wires on you, whether you're locating a fellow down firefighter and helping them out. This device can be a game changer and, more importantly, a lifesaver. Make sure you know that. If you want free information on how all this works, guess what we've done for you? This is Seek Thermal's miniature videos, or mini videos. We call them mini series. They're 1 to 4 minutes max, which can help you a lot. There's 14 free videos there. If you open the actual box of the FirePro 300, most people don't read the instructions. There's a quick reference card. You flip it over, there's 2 QR codes. One of them takes you to these videos, which we've already done for you. That's for free, whether you have the camera or not. And in addition to that, I'll share with you another one here in a minute that gives you even more. This is where we pulled all this data from. You're welcome to look this up yourself. I can share the links. The data on firefighter line of duty deaths, line of duty injuries, lost, caught, trapped, or disoriented came from the USFA. The disorientation study is the U.S. Firefighter Disorientation Study, or this book. By the way, be careful when you loan out books. I loan out books all the time. I never got this one back. This is a great book, Preventing Firefighter Disorientation by William Mora. Project Mayday is free. You can look that up online. Highly recommend you use that data. Michael Whitty's research report on maximizing thermal imaging use in emergency services, which publishes the literature review. Granted, it was written in 2010. But hint, UL and everybody else, there hasn't been a thermal imaging study since 2010. We need one. We need updated data with new cameras being tested up against industrial cameras and even optical gas imaging cameras to show what firefighters are missing, not antiquated cameras in multi-million-dollar studies. I think we can do better than that. And if you are purchasing new cameras, please check out our free purchasing implementation lesson plan. We even have a free webinar that we did with Seek. You go to this and you can go on our YouTube channel, Insight Training LLC, and you can see a list of all of our free webinars. This one that you're watching today, once the recording's released, will be uploaded for further use and view. And you can use this to compare your top 3 cameras and test them, but you have to burn with it. Please do not buy a camera based on what it does in the day room. The first word in TIC is thermal, imaging camera, thermal, which requires heat. These cameras are not designed for lost person searches. I hope you know that. People are using fire service cameras to look for people in the woods. You can do it. It's much, much more difficult because most of it's in grayscale. But if you use a law enforcement camera, like a monocular style, you'll see them better because they're designed for lower temperature environments with better detail. You need to use these where they're designed for, in moderate to high heat environments, and see how they compare against one another. Don't believe me. Don't believe a salesperson. Go do the work yourself. And please don't call somebody and ask them which tick they should buy with 1 week to go. That happens to me at least every week. Which one would you buy? I tell them none of them. Why? Because you haven't done your homework. Would you buy a car based on what somebody told you? They spec hose, fire gear, fire trucks, everything spec, but ticks are the last thing on the list next to behavioral health. And don't believe me, I can share emails of people calling me with less than 1 week left to make a major purchase on something they haven't researched. Do your homework. Please don't blame it on others or read it off of Facebook. Do your homework. It's worth the time. This is a life-saving device. And this is when I said I'm going to give you more free resources. The QR code on the left is our YouTube channel. Hundreds of hours of free videos, webinars, all organized by playlist. The one in the middle is Seek Thermal Resources. Remember the free videos I gave you with the QR code to the Fire Pro 300? You go to this link on my website, there's over 11 hours of resources for Seek Thermal devices. And the one on the right is the one we share with everyone that sits in this webinar. It's our public share Google Drive. It has resources for them. Every brand of camera out there, and lesson plans, PowerPoints, webinars, all kinds of stuff. You scan that QR code, it'll send me a little link asking for approval. I'll grant you access, and you can go in there and view what you want. I will warn you, it's more than 20 gigabytes. And if you have a free Gmail account, not going to see all of it. You got to pay Google. I got nothing to do with that. I'm sorry. That's a Google thing. But in general, we give away more free resources every day for one reason. I'm not worried about you stealing my PowerPoint. I'm not worried about you becoming a tick instructor. I lost my ego a long time ago. Ladies and gentlemen, I close with this. My mission is to get you home to your family. I can't do that if I withhold information from you. And more importantly, if I don't train you how to save others and I'm away from my family, which I am a lot, and you're the one that responds to my house, and I could have helped you, that's on me. And that's on all of us. When we withhold information, when we can help others be better. Do that every day and help this world be better. Learn what's out there so you can be a better firefighter, father, husband, mom, dad, whatever it may be, so you can make this world better. But take this stuff seriously. Give us a call, contact us if you need anything. We'll be glad to help you. This is our actual contact resources here. All of our social media stuff. I have a 15-person cadre now across the country. My lead instructors are listed there with a few more that's getting their pages up, including Reagan Underwood, John Lightly, and others. They're going to be doing a lot more for us. Please reach out to these guys or myself. If we can't answer your question, we will do our best to find the answer. We are not the experts. We're just lifelong students, and we'll be glad to help and discuss this stuff with you at a mutually agreed time. I appreciate you. Thank you for your time. I have about 10 minutes left. Brent, I'll let you close it out. If there's any questions I can answer, please let me know.
Yep. So I think we got through most of the questions in the chat. We're still getting through some of those. Just to wrap, can you go ahead and plug our next upcoming webinar with Chief John Lightly and give him a little bit of overview of what to expect and where to go and register for that?
There's many advertisements on my page and on Seek Thermal's page. You can look. We are going to have a special webinar next month, June 3rd, I believe it is, with special guest star instructor John Lightly. John Lightly is a chief, a battalion chief who sees a lot of fire, and we're going to share his experiences on size up and how a thermal imaging camera has helped him. He's going to share lessons learned from 3 specific incidents, which I think will be very valuable. We're not going to talk about concepts and get into theory. We're going to talk about, hey, this is a great guy who's been doing this a while, and he got into thermal imaging, and he shares his experiences on how it's impacted his decisions on the fire ground. And those little nuggets and lessons learned can help you. And that's our goal. That's free through Seek Thermal. It's going to be offered, like I say, June 3rd, if I remember correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong, Brent.
That's correct.
Good. Thank you. I'm glad, because my brain's about the size of a Post-it note these days. It's got a very short gigabyte capability. But if we look at what's out there, a lot of stuff, there's a lot of good training. This is experientially relevant training from a person who's on the job, who's using it every day. It can help you make a difference. If you're in the company officer role or you ride up, you may be doing a size up, please take your time to sign up for this. It will be recorded if you can't attend live, but we do recommend you attend live if possible, and reach out to us if you have any questions. John's on all the social media pages as well, and we've already got that pretty much built out with a couple little finishing touches we're putting on it now. 3 case studies. You'll really enjoy it. and they're actual house fires. They're not training burns, and you'll learn from one of the best. Appreciate your time.
All right, that concludes this webinar. Thanks everyone for joining.